Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Parker here with your weekly quantum human design energy forecast for the week starting on Monday, May the 26th. Okay, so for the last few weeks, the sun has been transiting through gates that have been part of the individual circuitry. And we've been talking about how individuality is about learning to stay true to your own course, right? To set your own inner course, follow your own inner direction, and become immune to what's going on around you so that you can focus and steer and harness your energy towards creating that which is true to yourself, right? So it's a beautiful theme as we enter the springtime of realigning, of getting really, really clear about what are our dreams and what do we need to do to stay completely aligned and focused on our dreams. We move now into Gemini season. And of course, Gemini is a sign that is all about communication. And of course, when we move into Gemini season, the sun begins to highlight the gates of the throat center. The throat center is the center for communication, but it's also the center for manifestation into action. So the way in which the throat center is configured says a lot about how you use energy. So if you are a manifester or a manifesting generator or a time bender and an initiator in quantum human design, you have a motor, some kind of a motor in the chart, and there are 4 motors in the chart: the will center, the emotional solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. You will have a motor of some kind connected to your throat. So if you look at your chart and you look at what's colored in on your chart, if you can follow a colored in channel from any one of those 4 centers, the will center, the emotional solar plexus, the sacral, or the root, you will have manifestor qualities of energy. Well, what makes manifestor quality energy? A manifestor quality of energy means you have an internal, and ironic as this is, nonverbal creative flow, meaning you're designed to follow your own inner flow of creative impulse, your own inner sense of timing around action. But, and there's a but, right? It's a nonverbal flow. And that means that one of the challenges sometimes for manifestor types and manifesting generator types is getting connected enough to that flow and being conscious and deliberate and intentional enough with that flow that you take stock of who's going to be impacted in your environment by your actions and inform them. Let them know you're coming. Let them know so that you're not asking permission, but let them know so that they can move out of the way. So your creative flow and your capacity to follow your own inner timing is seamless, and you're not interrupted by people asking you if they can help or people asking you, what are you doing, right? And you don't have to start translating that fire, that creative force inside of you into language, which can actually slow you down. Now, the rest of us, we have to, as part of the creative process, articulate what we're doing. We have to build a framework of language. And by the way, even if you're a manifestor or a manifesting generator, you still do, because we're not talking about using language in an affirming way for a specific manifestation. We're talking about structuring the way in which we speak into the world, in our relationships, in our, with our money, with our work, with our spiritual connection, with our body. The way in which we speak into the world gives form. Language holds frequencies. Language is a form of energy. It creates a structure. It creates a field of information, not so much on the quantum level anymore. Now we're doing it on a 3D level. We're building fields of information with the language that we use. And when the sun highlights these language gates, these speaking throat center gates, we're being invited to carefully explore as we begin the process of taking that dream, that authentic alignment that we've been cultivating and putting it out into the world. We're being invited to carefully and with great intention begin to speak that vision into form. If you want to create something, the odds are pretty high for most of us, if not all of us, that somewhere along the way we're either going to need to collaborate or at the very least be in relationship with someone as a part of that creative process. And to be able to do that, we have to be able to articulate. We have to be able to speak our dreams into form. Language, because it carries a frequency of energy, is also influential, right? How we speak, what we say, how we connect with each other verbally, the words we use create frequencies of energy, but they also create influence. And so this entire season of Gemini is about communication, creating verbal fields of information, about aligning with, collaborating with, working with people to to create together around ideas and possibilities and potentials. It is a place where we speak words that create alignments, that create connection, that allow for the sharing of resources, that allow for authentic self-expression and even storytelling. And storytelling itself is a creative act, and it's also an act that actually can push the edges of what's possible forward. When we share our stories, we share stories of possibility. And when we have a story that helps somebody else who's lived through maybe a similar story, we begin to crack open the edges of what people perceive as possible. So it's a beautiful season for us to really become accountable and responsible for how we speak and what we're speaking about to each other, so that we can begin to use language as a way of bringing us together and unifying us around common ideals rather than separating us and polarizing us against each other. Now, in the shadow of this energy, overall, thematically, in the shadow of this energy, the throat center is the center that needs recognition and attention, right? It has a theme of, in order for it to be able to communicate and share, right, it has to be seen, it has to be heard. And so certainly in this season, until we get to, the mid-June, we're in a season where in our relationships, especially, the theme of feeling heard and seen, or feeling like you need to do something to be seen, comes up. And again, a gentle reminder that the more you stand in your own value, the more you're holding a high frequency of energy by using language responsibly, by cultivating an energy field of inspiration and information, the more you call people in to talk to you and recognize you and see you. If you're stuck in a narrative of needing to be right, wanting to polarize, of needing or feeling like you're not worthy of being seen, so you're manipulating the energies around you to do things that are maybe inappropriate as a way of getting attention, you may be not only failing to get the attention that you want and the recognition that you need, you may also actually be depleting yourself and people around you, and that can actually push people away. So when we work with this energy, we're really looking at how to harness the power of language and the power of our energy to best meet the needs of not only ourselves, but the communication needs of the people around us. But certainly, in this month ahead, I definitely would invite you to explore whatever relationship you have between feeling seen and heard and your inner sense of lovability. Sometimes we think we're not loved if we're not heard, and we fail to recognize that maybe you're not being heard because you're not in the right place with the right people, and that maybe for you to get the right recognition, you need to love yourself and value yourself a little bit more, and remove yourself out of environments where people don't get you, or they don't hear you, or they don't recognize you, or they don't value you. The throat center is also associated with the thyroid. It's the master gland of the endocrine system. And so when we misuse this energy, when we push our words out, or we struggle to use our words in a way that's effective and influential, or when we don't feel seen and we feel like we have to push or manipulate the environment, we can also start to burn ourselves out, and it can impact the throat, literally making our voices gravelly and hard to express, hard to get our words out, or we literally can crash our thyroid and our endocrine system, causing us to be depleted and exhausted. And so certainly there's a certain magic, if you will, to the correct use of the throat center. It's an activation center. And when we stand in our value, when we're clear in our dreams, when we know who we are, when we're uncompromising in recognizing that we deserve to be placing ourselves in an environment where we are seen and heard and valued by the right people, when we do that, then we will also take care of our energy. And when we're pushing really hard and hustling really hard and trying to convince and drag people into whatever it is we're trying to bring them into with our words, it can be exhausting and depleting. Don't do that to yourself. Really watch your energy this month as the sun goes through these gates. Really watch your energy and explore. Are you in the right place with the right people? Are you being valued for who you are? Are you valuing yourself? And are there changes you need to make in your environment in order for you to create an environment where you are worthy and easily recognized and seen for the beauty and the wisdom and the brilliance that you bring to the table? That's our task for the next month, right? And certainly with the nodes, continuing to highlight the gate 36 and the gate 6, which is an energy that invites us to explore what limiting patterns do we have? What patterns do we need to break apart and shift in order for us to have greater impact? You know, it feeds perfectly with this throat center energy, right? And so we're really being invited to explore what limiting patterns do we have that need to be broken so that we can stand in the right place with the right people and use the right language and be seen for who we are. And if we're not in the right place with the right people, what patterns need to change so that you can find yourself, create for yourself the right environment that's worthy of who you are. That's my throat center talk this week. All right. Next, we have another big change on the 24th, just Saturday of last week. Saturn moved into Aries, where it will be until September 1st, and then it goes back into Pisces. Back into Pisces, where it'll be in a retrograde station until February the 13th, 2026, where it will return to Aries for a couple of years. So we've been sitting with Saturn in Pisces for a couple of years, and this is an energy that has been, shaking things up, right? Making, really bringing up into our awareness what emotional alignments do we need to shift? Where do we need to change our emotional energy? Where do we need to bring ourselves into alignment with faith? It's interesting, Saturn is a great teacher. Saturn certainly removes obstacles out of the way that can keep us from growing and expanding. But Saturn is also really strategic. Like Saturn likes a plan. Saturn likes to know that you're not just feeling it, you're actually doing it. And as Saturn moves into Aries, we get a lot of energy for doing. But that energy for doing is kind of youthful, and it can be almost impulsive or compulsive. And when that energy kicks in, if we're not strategic with how to harness this energy, it gives us the possibility that we're going to be running all over the place, starting all kinds of fires without a whole lot of deliberate intent. And so there's a little bit of a push me, pull you energy when Saturn is in Aries. And it is an energy that certainly is going to make you feel, and maybe you've even been feeling it in the last few days, that we're in a new season. We're in a new cycle. It is a cycle that can be revolutionary. And in fact, if we look back historically, when Saturn has been in Aries, it brings with it a certain theme of war, fighting, and revolution. But I have always been said, and I've been saying a lot this year, there's a big difference between a rebellion and a revolution, right? A rebellion is youthful. A rebellion is like your teenage years, right? You're going to do your hair funny and rip your clothes and put safety pins in it, or, and that's your rebellious act of self-alignment, right? Revolutions take time. Revolutions are strategic. Revolutions require that you do your homework. So it's easy for us to think about, Saturn and Aries as being sort of like the Fool card in the tarot deck, which, by the way, is our theme for this week. The sun highlighting the gate 16, the gate of zest, brings us a very similar theme, right? So we have this theme playing out for the next couple of years of youthful enthusiasm, of the fool, right? The young man or the young person getting ready to start off on a long journey with their knapsack packed and ready to go. And they're getting ready to take that first step of that long journey. And they haven't bothered to look down. They haven't done their homework. They haven't looked at the map, and they're about to step off the edge of the cliff, right? That's the theme. That's a really good theme for Saturn and Aries. We have the potential for great momentum to begin a long journey. A revolution is a long journey, but we can't start the revolution and be strategic if we haven't done our homework first. And so there's a real push me, pull you energy with this Saturn and Aries of wanting to go forward and wanting to feel like, let's do it. And this other part that says, yes, we should do it. For sure. We should do it, but let's do our homework first. And I think certainly in the next couple of years, we're going to have to be guarding ourselves to protect ourselves from being impetuous, from being impulsive, from taking that step off the edge of the cliff without consulting the map first. And there's a real call for us to be super intentional and strategic and use that youthful, zestful energy as a source of fuel, with the understanding that it's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a long journey. And so take good care of yourselves, and certainly take the time to gauge the emotional energy in the room. Take the time to consult the metaphorical map. Take the time to do the homework and be strategic. This will position us actually really nicely over time if we're intentional and deliberate. And certainly everything in the last 3 years has been all about getting us to set our course forward. Everything in the planetary transits for the last couple of years has been inviting us to explore the answer to the question, what do you want? What do you want? Now we start to get the strategies revealed to us in terms of what is it that we need to do to get what we want, right? We've been sitting in limbo a little bit in the last few years of okay, what do I want? What do I want? Why is it not happening? Now it starts to get ready to happen. But if we're not clear about point B on the map, if we're not clear about where we're headed and we're not watching the map and we're not doing those practiced things that we're supposed to be learning with Saturn in Pisces, if we haven't implemented and brought our practice with us, then we are at risk of not being effective in what it is that we end up doing. So to be strategic, you still need to be answering the question, what do you want? What's your dream? What's your vision? And anchoring yourself in those dreams, in those visions on a daily basis so that your momentum forward is guided by a bigger picture and you can stay aligned with where you're headed instead of getting frustrated, getting angry, feeling bitter, feeling disappointed, and leaping all over the place, taking ineffective action towards something that might not even manifest, except it might manifest as chaos if you're not doing your homework first. So that is Saturn and Aries. Certainly, this week, I would encourage you to continue to envision what is it that you want? What is it that you want? And for you to learn to trust the timing. Saturn and Aries can be impatient. Sun in the gate 16 can also bring a theme of impatience. And it's an enthusiastic impatience. It's a fun impatience, right? You got a big idea, you want to get going. But timing is everything. And if we jump the gun, or if we push, or if we hustle, or we don't take time to really put the words to the dream, if we're not informing, if we're trying to get inappropriate attention, that pushing, that hustling, that enthusiasm can actually quickly fizzle and cause us to feel exhausted and defeated if we're not careful. Flower essences for this week. While the sun is in the gate 20, that's Monday, working with the flower remedy of impatience from the Bach Flower Remedies. When the sun moves to the gate 16, the gate of zest on Tuesday, scleranthus is the flower essence for the, I can't read my own writing. Scleranthus is the flower essence for the gate 16. So a really lovely energy to help us take the edge off of our frenetic urges, right? Our EFT setup for this week, even though my sense of urgency wants me to take action before I'm prepared and I feel anxious, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Take good care of yourselves. I'll post the link to EFT for everyone below. Be patient, do your homework, speak good words, be kind to each other, take advantage of this beautiful energy, go plant something new, and answer the question, what do you want? What do you want? That's your point B on your map. Have a great week. Bye.